Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to take you through my whole story, basically the only thing that makes you unique nowadays. And yeah, I'm going to take you through pretty much around when everyone's life pretty much starts around the age of kind of 11, 12, all the way up to now when I'm 20. So basically what I've done is wanted to pursue professional golf for almost a decade, and then I kind of lost it a bit, wanted to find out really why that was, and got into business this last year. But I'm going to take you more in depth on the lessons that I've learned, really what I went through, a tough kind of experience in school because I was so different, and how I wish I'd embraced that earlier on, and then how that kind of affected me later on in my pursuit of becoming basically a professional golfer and now today in business. So yeah, I'll get started with it now. So really around kind of the age of 10 or 11, I just was obsessed. I wanted to become a professional golfer. And after kind of a couple of years getting into secondary school, I found it pretty tough because I was so different. I didn't like any of those activities like drinking, like listening to rap music, going out to parties, stuff like that. I just wanted to prioritize my golf. And yeah, that certainly made me very different, and that was the first lesson I learned. Certainly didn't embrace being different from the start. If somebody was to highlight that I didn't know something, or maybe I was doing something different nowadays, I'd embrace that. I'd be proud of it. But back then I was gonna hide it, and I wasn't proud of who I was. And that was the first thing. So I started to get into secondary school. It was quite different. It was just focused on golf and tried to be somebody that I wasn't. Indefinitely got picked on because you're going to be different. I was quite skinny. I still am, but I've definitely, started working out a bit and started eating a bit more, becoming more proud of myself. But basically, was being skinny, having a deeper voice, and playing golf were kind of the three things that would have been picked on for it. And it would have been tough for me. And all I wanted to do was kind of get out of school and just get onto the course and start practicing, stuff like that. And I eventually got through it, but there were some tough times where I would just be focused on my golf, trying to go about my business, and then other stuff would happen, like fake Instagram accounts related to my golf, stuff I was doing off outside of school. And yeah, because I was different, you know how it is. And since I've gotten into business the last year, if you are from Ireland and you try and start something different, you are going to get picked on because you're supposed to be part of this like circle of following the same path, going to college, drinking, going out, getting a job, and just kind of being somewhat of a slave. And some people find their true joy in college because they find a degree that they really like, but for the most part, people just have nothing better to do. So school was tough for me, and I eventually got through that, started to take a year out and actually try and get into professional golf as quick as I could. And in that year out, I started to play in professional golf tournaments. I went over to Spain about 18 months ago, and I started to play some good golf. And then I got to the point where my progress just started to really stagnate because of a few things. A part of the like people around me, all my friends who were in golf, they started to really accelerate, and I started to kind of just really kind of decline. And I really couldn't put my finger on what it was. And really looking back on it now, it was down to a few things. And I think this isn't talked about enough. Like, I'm part of this community right now, my friend James, who I met in the online world, and it's for people who are basically in business, trying to start out away from the traditional kind of Irish path and being sucked into your bad habits. And really another thing that I think is we don't have enough really people who follow their dreams when it comes to sport in kind of the UK and Ireland. And it's come down to a few reasons that it really stopped me. And I realized this past year in business. It was down to the habits that I have, because you do become your habits. It was also down to the perception I had of myself. My mindset wasn't strong enough. I didn't have enough confidence in exactly who I was and who I wanted to be and who I was becoming. And I really need to sit back and really assess who I wanted to be and what that was going to take, the habits that I had, because I still had a lot of gaps really throughout that whole journey. And that was really hurting me because I had, it was too much on social media. I would have had a bad diet. I wasn't really going to the gym. I didn't have all that stuff that was going to propel me. And I was losing out on that because of what I'd had in the past. So I had to really kind of strip out the bad habits. And I didn't realize that. And it led to me not enjoying golf and not making any progress. And when you do those two things, it's kind of hard to keep going. So I had to kind of really stop it and assess. And that was, I thought at the time, was just it for me with golf, because I fell out of love with it. I didn't enjoy it anymore. I loved that journey. I loved trying to get better and those, showing up every day. It's like going to the gym where you just show up every day and you try and get a bit better. But really that was tough for me, and I decided it was time to take a break because I wasn't seeing any progress. If anything, I was getting worse, and it just wasn't good for me, and I had to find out what that was. So I'd always had that purpose and I'd lost it. And right now I was on a year out from after finishing secondary school. I was going into college and I had about 4 months, and I needed to find something, a new purpose that was gonna propel me every day, because I started to go down the wrong path. I got a minimum wage job and I started to hang around with the wrong people, and I went to my first night out, and yeah, that was something in itself. So when I first went on a night out, I thought this was like, I just knew it was the wrong thing to do, but I didn't actually have anything else to do. And it was pretty much just out of choice. I had nothing to do. So I went on that, and I was again trying to be somebody else that I knew I wasn't, and I knew I was wasting my time. And a few things kind of hit me on that night. So the first one was when I was going out and I was drinking, I wasn't able to get drunk, and I was glad of that. But once you, like, for those of you who do drink, if you go out and you try and drink with your friends, and or try not to drink, and you just look around at everybody who is drunk, they have to be drunk to enjoy that situation. So if you're out in a club or something like that, and I would just, like, even though I was drinking to try and get away and just try and do what everyone else was doing, I would look around and be like, is this what everybody needs to do to their body to actually enjoy a night out? And usually if you're drinking, it's because you're not going on nights out that are good enough. And by nights out, that can be, right now in business for me, like that could be going out with to network in an event where you actually just sit and talk about business and life and kind of your goals, stuff like that. It doesn't have to be you going out and causing harm to your body, really not getting anything from it. So really that was the worst experience, because I would just look around, I was like, I do not fit in at all, and I didn't think I could find anybody that did. And really that's why I thought I had no other option. Like, if I quit golf, I literally have nothing else. I have to go and get a job with all these other people who like to drink, and I just don't fit in, and I'm just going to be lonely for the rest of my life. And it was around that point when I started to kind of get away from that and realize, okay, this definitely isn't me. I need to find people around me who are similar, and people with golf were similar, but it was just the fact that I just couldn't see any progress at all. So what I did was I started listening online to a few guys who were so-called influencers about an online business, and I started to get into that. I got into starting my own agency, and I would slowly along that journey. I started college then. Over a few months, I started to build up a business, started to hire people, and started to sign clients, make money. And I never made a substantial amount of money, but I got to a point where I found people that I enjoyed being around. And it took me, like, honestly, it took me nearly 4 or 5 months to start signing clients from it, but it really allowed me to find out that I, didn't have to be somebody I wasn't around other people. I could start to stack up the good habits. I started to build a good mindset, and I really started to change how I perceive myself, a new identity. And once I started to become this new person, these new habits, these new diet, the new goals, stuff like that, I started to realize this was the reason that I stopped with golf, because I didn't have a clear idea of who I was. I didn't have the right habits every day. I was missing out on so many, like, missing pieces compared to other people who were succeeding and obviously make a living from playing professional golf. And that's what really was missing for me. So there's just a lot of, unanswered missing pieces that were there. And this is what entrepreneurship and an agency decided or just taught me. So basically, yeah, and so college comes around, and really I realized even more here that I need to get out of here. I'm not like everybody else, and I need to get out of this environment, because environment is everything. You become your environment. So college rolls around about September, just under a year ago, and I pretty much just step everything up a level with my agency. I start doing all the stuff that nobody wants to do, the hundreds of cold calls, 100 to 200 cold calls every day, and eventually get onto that in kind of October, start booking sales calls. But with an agency, you need to figure out everything, and it probably wasn't the best thing for me to start off the bat, but I don't regret it. So I was doing 100, 200 cold calls a day. Then I would get to it, and I would start, it took me 1,000 of those calls to book a single sales call. And then from those sales calls, it took me 20, and then another 1,000 cold calls on top of that, and another 20 sales calls to actually close somebody. And then I went on to sign a few clients within 3 weeks after not signing any for like 4 months since starting. And with those 3 clients, I refunded all 3 of them for different reasons. One, because I didn't get them results, and the other because they weren't a good fit. They had no money, and I still signed them on and ended up refunding them. Then the third was just a terrible onboarding process. So I'm learning all these lessons, and really like the first 6 months there, without really making any money, I learned more in those 6 months than I did in the first 19 kind of years of my life. Because I was putting myself through tough scenarios, I started going to the gym. I started doing a lot of things, stripping away all those bad habits, really testing myself on how to actually focus. And once I started to get in that zone and actually find out, fuck, I can actually do anything I want. And I didn't really think of going back to golf or anything like that yet, but I was like, geez, I can actually do anything when I take away everything that's holding me back. And that's really what the first few months are. It's just learning to have better posture. It's just learning to speak a bit slower and communicate better. It's learning to not go on social media and scroll. It's learning to do things that are actually productive and move the needle forward. And yeah, so fast forward then, I realized gyms wasn't the best people to work with. So I switched over to remodelers. And after kind of, this now is start of the year, kind of January, and switch over to remodelers, home improvement, and started signing like 5 clients in the first month. Got it up to 6.5K kind of cash collected that first month, and still didn't actually make any money from it because I hired a cold calling team, booked a crazy amount of appointments, and it was a new experience hiring people, learning how to manage, motivate people. And yeah, it was almost like those were kind of the most productive months, because if you can feel like a week for you feels like a month to other people, or even like a month feels like a year to other people, you can just be in an environment where you're just constantly feel like you're overwhelmed and you're progressing faster. That's a constant reminder that you're in an environment, in a situation where you're just progressing faster than other people. So it's all about trying to accelerate and move with speed, no matter what kind of level you're at. And that is done through many different things, like getting around the right people, putting yourself in the toughest situations through the most kind of pain, so you can kind of grow and learn really who you are a lot faster. So fast forward to that, and it kind of stopped at around that because of a few different things. It was like our offer wasn't great, but it was all these things that I was still figuring out. I was still relatively new to business in the first kind of 6 months, and it got to that point where I signed a few clients, got to a decent amount, and then I was in a partnership with somebody else, and I just knew it wasn't going to work because I didn't like that person. I started to grow to not like that person. I just knew, even though I knew eventually we were going to succeed in the next few months, I just knew with myself that couldn't be sustainable. And I ended up leaving because it was under his bank account, his dad's bank account. It was just a nightmare. So I had to get out of it and pretty much start again from kind of square one. But with all these lessons I learned about hiring cold callers, learned different things about building a better product, a lot of other things really. And yeah, I kind of got to that point where I just cut it off. And then looking back, obviously that agency went on a few months later to do up to 20-30K a month. I don't know what it's doing now. And it would have been easy for me to look at that and think I did quit when times were tough. And it probably was a little bit of that, if I'm being honest with you. But it was also a part of me, like, I needed to get out of there before that because it wasn't sustainable. I didn't enjoy being around the people that were in there in that agency, and it just wasn't going to be sustainable for me. So it was a lesson learned that I needed to think longer term and really think about, I still have a lot of time here and I don't need to rush into something if I know it's not going to be the right fit for me. So I kind of took a step back from that and started an agency again, signed a few clients. It didn't go too well, and I with fulfilling with those clients, and I just didn't really feel, obviously started to get some doubts, didn't really feel like agency was completely the right model for me because I just didn't want to work with local business. After that, then I had a lot of agency owners that would naturally, who were also my friends at that point, who would ask me for advice, and I honestly had quite a few. So what I decided to do was start up kind of a community of coaching for agency owners. I try and give them as much as possible, and I always liked coaching because I'd worked with agency owners one-to-one before that. And I set up that community, and it was nice. It was more of like a passion project kind of on the side, and I kind of set that up with the help of one of a coach who was part of a coaching program that I was in before, and I set it up with him, and he obviously left it because of personal reasons. He was having another kid, so I just kind of run that by myself now, which is still running. And yeah, now I kind of work with basically online like info products, so people who sell information online. I'm currently working with one guy who does over 6 figures, and I have a bit more spare time now with a bit more leverage in terms of what I know, and I'm just kind of figuring out what it is that I'm going to do. Pretty much just over a year now that I've been in the game, and I'm just trying to take some time back now to kind of decide really what I want to do, what's my North Star, and the one thing that I want to achieve. And because I'm not tied down to, I thought I had to do an agency, I thought I had to do this business model, I thought I had to work all day, but like I want to make sure I'm working on the right thing. So that's pretty much been my story from the start. I started off really different, wanted to be a professional golfer. I got through secondary school. It was tough, a lot of tough experiences, but got through it. Took a year out, started to travel with some golf, came back, started to not see the progress, ventured into entrepreneurship, and really found out who I was. And now it's just kind of about finding out those next steps. And the lessons were really just to embrace who you are from the start, and try not to be someone else that you're not, because on that journey it's very tough. You accumulate obviously the behaviors, the habits of all the people around you, especially in Ireland or the UK as well. It's not easy, because you are kind of the sum of the people that you spend the most time with, and that is very hard to get away from early doors, especially if you're in secondary school or if you're in college. It's very tough, and you really need to decide what you want and just pursue that. So I'll make some separate videos basically on, I had some other experience as well recently. The last, just over a month ago, I went to my first mastermind in Marbella, and I just learned a lot of great stuff. It opened my eyes up to what I can do. I can do anything that I want to do. And I'll share a separate video on the biggest things that I took away from that. Also on the identity change that I had. I was very skinny, had no confidence, hated myself, and had a terrible haircut because I thought it was, would make me fit in more. All these stupid things. And really, I'll create a video on the whole transition I had in terms of who I was. Also on the biggest takeaways I had from investing in myself, traveling to a different country to take advice from successful people, and then also what's kind of next for me. Because as I said, I've had a bit more time to think recently about what it is that I want to do and what's best for me. And yeah, I'll reveal that in a future few videos, but that's pretty much been the story, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, just stick along for kind of some future videos. I'll try and be as intentional and as valuable as possible to the people who want to stick around and watch. And yeah, just stick along for the journey, guys.